What if the position you're in right now was preparing you for a moment that could change history? In the days of King Ahasuerus, the great king of Persia who ruled over 127 provinces, there was a celebration unlike anything the ancient world had ever seen. For 180 days, he displayed the vast wealth of his kingdom and the splendor of his majesty. Then, for 7 more days, he hosted a grand banquet for every person in Susa, and the king commanded that every man could drink what he wished. His power was absolute. But on the 7th day, when the king's heart was merry with wine, he commanded that Queen Vashti be brought before him and his guests, so he could display her beauty to the people and the nobles. But Queen Vashti refused to come, and the king burned with anger. His advisors warned him, if the queen's refusal became known, every woman in the empire would disrespect her husband. So Vashti was stripped of her position, and a royal decree sent across every province. A new queen would be chosen, and the search had begun. Now in Susa there was a Jewish man named Mordecai of the tribe of Benjamin, one of the exiles carried away from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar. He had raised his young cousin Hadassah, known by her Persian name, Esther, for she had neither father nor mother, and she was beautiful in form and appearance. When the king's order was proclaimed, many young women were brought to the palace. Esther also was taken. Mordecai told her not to reveal her people or her kindred, for he had commanded her, and Esther obeyed as she had obeyed when she was under his care. Every day Mordecai walked in front of the court of the harem to learn how Esther was and what was happening to her. When Esther's turn came to go before King Ahasuerus, she found favor in his eyes more than all the other women, and he loved Esther more than all the other women. He set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. In those days, while Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, he discovered a plot against the king's life. He reported it through Esther, and it was recorded in the king's chronicles. But Mordecai received no reward. Not yet. After these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman the Agagite and set his seat above all the officials who were with him. And all the king's servants bowed down and paid homage to Haman, for the king had so commanded. But Mordecai did not bow down or pay homage. Day after day he stood, and when Haman's servants asked him why, Mordecai told them he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not bow down to him, he was filled with fury. But he scorned the idea of laying hands on Mordecai alone. Instead, he sought to destroy all the Jews, every one of Mordecai's people, throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus. In the first month of the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, Haman cast Pur, that is, the lot, to determine the most favorable day to carry out his plan. The lot fell on the 13th day of the month of Adar. Haman went to the king with a half-truth. There was a certain people scattered throughout the kingdom who did not keep the king's laws. It would not be to the king's profit to tolerate them. With 10,000 talents of silver, Haman would take care of it. The king removed his signet ring and gave it to Haman. The people are yours. Do with them as it seems good to you. The decree was written and sent to every province, to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all Jews, young and old, women and children, on a single day, the 13th of Adar. The king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Susa was thrown into confusion, and among the Jewish people there was great mourning, fasting, weeping, and lamenting. When Mordecai learned all that had been done, he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, crying out with a loud and bitter cry. Esther was deeply distressed. She sent a servant to Mordecai to learn what was happening. Mordecai gave Hathach a copy of the written decree, the full truth of what Haman had done, and instructed him to show it to Esther, and to urge her to go to the king. Esther's response was honest. The law was clear. To approach the king unsummoned was to risk death, and she had not been called into the king's presence in 30 days. Do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Esther sent this reply, Go, gather all the Jews in Susa and hold a fast on my behalf. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my young women will also fast. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish." On the third day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace, in front of the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne, facing the entrance of the palace. And when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, she won favor in his sight. He held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter, and the king said to her, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request?" "It shall be given you, even to half of my kingdom." Esther was wise. She did not reveal her request yet. Instead, she said, "If it please the king, let the king and Haman come today to a feast that I have prepared." The king commanded immediately, "Bring Haman quickly so that we may do as Esther has asked." Haman went out that day joyful and glad of heart. But when he saw Mordecai at the king's gate, that Mordecai neither rose nor trembled before him, Haman was filled with wrath against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself. That night Zeresh his wife and all his friends said to him, "Let a gallows 50 cubits high be made, and in the morning tell the king to have Mordecai hanged on it. Then go to the feast joyfully." This pleased Haman, and he had the gallows made. On that night, the same night, the king could not sleep. He commanded the book of memorable deeds to be brought and read to him. And it was found written that Mordecai had told about the 2 officers who sought to kill the king. And the king asked, "What honor or distinction has been bestowed on Mordecai for this?" His servant said, "Nothing has been done for him." And in that same moment, Haman had just entered the outer court to speak to the king about having Mordecai hanged on the gallows he had prepared. The king said, "Who is in the court?" And they told him, "Haman is there, standing in the court." The king said, "Let him come in." And Haman said to himself, "Whom would the king delight to honor more than me?" So Haman told the king, "For the man the king delights to honor, let royal robes be brought, and the horse the king has ridden, and a royal crown. Let the robes and the horse be handed to one of the king's most noble officials. Let them dress the man whom the king delights to honor, and lead him on the horse through the city square, proclaiming before him, 'Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor.'" So Haman took the robes and the horse. He dressed Mordecai and led him through the city square, proclaiming, "Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor." Then Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman hurried home, mourning and with his head covered. At the second banquet, the king asked for the third time, "What is your petition, Queen Esther?" "It shall be granted." "What is your request?" "Even to half of my kingdom it shall be fulfilled." Esther set down her cup. She looked at the king, directly, and she said, "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be granted me for my wish, and my people for my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. If we had been sold merely as slaves, I would have been silent. For our affliction is not worth the king's trouble." Haman was terrified before the king and the queen. The king rose in his wrath and went into the palace garden. And Haman stood to beg Queen Esther for his life, for he saw that harm was determined against him by the king. The king returned, and Haman had fallen on the couch where Esther was. The king said, "Will he even assault the queen in my own house?" As the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Harbona, one of the king's eunuchs, stepped forward quietly. Moreover, the gallows that Haman prepared for Mordecai, whose word saved the king, it stands at Haman's house, 50 cubits high. The king turned, "Hang him on it." So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the fury of the king abated. On that day, King Ahasuerus gave Esther the house of Haman, and Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told the king how he was related to her. The king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai, and Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. The king could not revoke a royal edict sealed in his name, but he could authorize another. He gave Esther and Mordecai his signet ring. "Write as you see fit in the king's name and seal it." A counter-decree went out to every province. The Jews were permitted to gather, defend themselves, and destroy any armed force that might attack them. In every province and in every city, wherever the king's command and his edict reached, there was gladness and joy among the Jews, a feast and a holiday. And many from the peoples of the land declared themselves Jews, for the fear of Mordecai had fallen on them. On the very day when the enemies of the Jews hoped to gain power over them, the opposite occurred. The Jews gained power over those who hated them. The reversal was complete. Mordecai recorded these events and sent letters to all the Jews throughout the provinces of King Ahasuerus, calling them to observe annually the 14th and 15th days of Adar, the days on which the Jews got relief from their enemies. These days of feasting and joy, of giving gifts of food to one another and gifts to the poor, these were called Purim, after the word pur, the lot, and it is a celebration observed to this day. Mordecai the Jew was second in rank to King Ahasuerus. He was great among the Jews and popular with the multitude of his brothers, for he sought the welfare of his people and spoke peace to all his people. Esther didn't know what her position would cost her. She only knew she couldn't stay silent, and the God whose name is never mentioned in the book of Esther was present in every sleepless night, every reversed decree, every perfectly timed moment. He moved in the shadows so that his people might stand in the light. The question Mordecai asked Esther is still being asked today. Could it be that you, right where you are, have been placed there for such a time as this? If this story stirred something in you, subscribe to Bible Kingdom Tales, where the stories of Scripture come to life. Every week, a new chapter of the greatest story ever told.